Hello and welcome. This is your GM in the Great Barrier, broadcasting from the center of your entertainment galaxy. We are back with Star Trek Adventures Aegis, our 22nd century campaign, following the crew of the pictured Daedalus class vessel, the Aegis. Just to start off with, a few little shout outs and then our usual recap, and we'll get back into the session. The very first one I would like to make, however, goes to something that some of you may be noticing on your screen ahead of you, particularly in that top left corner. This was something spared from a promo that I had. This was actually art that was given to me by a Reddit user who did not wish a request for credit. But they made some spectacular logos both for this game and for Broken Sword. So first off, you anonymous Reddit viewer, if you are either here or watching in the archive or live, wherever you are, thank you for that. I really do appreciate them, and they look quite excellent. I hope you and others continue to enjoy the show. On other shout outs, I would give a shout out to a guest of the live chat and certainly a very talented GM in his own right, the author 13. He is GMing, among other things, the Star Trek Adventures Gungnir adventure, which, if memory serves, airs on Thursdays in the evening Eastern Standard Time. It's usually, I think, either 6 or 7 p.m. Specific times for those of you that are in the archive will you will see it there. I will be sure to post it in the description of the video. And a brainwave is coming to me. It is 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so definitely check it out. They are carrying on some very exciting adventures in the Shackleton Expanse, set more in the TNG era, far off from ours. I think that I will just go on from here and we will get things going. But yeah, we hope that you continue to enjoy this episode. If you're at all interested in the channel, of course, for those that are in the archive, follow us here on YouTube, or you can, if you ever want to catch us live, we broadcast on twitch.tv/GM in the Great Barrier on Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we hope you will join us and for that or other Star Trek adventures that we run. And let's get into the recap now. So when last we left off, the Aegis had been conducting had been back out in the field after conducting repairs with back in Tellarite space. This after you had successfully returned the survivors of a freighter from a Kazinti raid. You have made first contact with that rather fearsome, if well, at the very least, you can say they are a fearsome set of foes, but not unbeatable. And with considerable effort, you did manage to take down that ship. Um, the battle damage that you accrued, you were able to get repaired, and you've just been essentially recalibrating your equipment since then. The sensors being the last thing to fully come online, and it had come out last time that you had managed to locate a debris field. Um, Very specifically, the site of a large-scale skirmish between the Vulcans and Andorians. For as you know, at this point, you are about 2 months into what has been a staggering conflict between them, uh, dated not very long after the Vulcan embassy incident and your own experience chasing down a Tellarite freighter laden with chemosite. Um, that has been sort of in the background for you. You have been very far away from the conflict to this point, but this zone that you are now engaging, rather that you found the Vulcans and Andorians to have carried out fighting in, it does seem to be further afield and indeed well outside of the normal set of Andorian and Vulcan conflict, and it, not necessarily outside of their interests, but it is definitely a far stretch from where they would usually be present. So, upon investigating the field, you unfortunately discovered no signs of life. It looks as though the remnants of the group would be possibly the entirety of an Andorian task force and a good number of Vulcan ships, possibly, but not necessarily an entire fleet grouping for them. You did also locate one human constructed vessel, specifically a scout ship flagged to Alpha Centauri, the colony that became independent at the start of this campaign, and one that has been under the protection of the Vulcans since that initial mission succeeded. This ship, as you discovered, the Lily, has been far afield from Alpha Centauri since before that particular incident, and is carrying an interesting set of passengers. An Aurelian and avian life form by the name of Tenkayet Fen, a Denobulan who identifies herself as Dr. Natala, and a human by the name of Kara Sloan, whom it did not take long to determine was, in fact, a descendant of Lily Sloan, one of the figures in Zephram Cochrane's circle, and someone absolutely vital to the development of the first human warp engine. They have been out in space for some months and are apparently on their way back to Alpha Centauri when they came across this battle site, or it's a little unclear. It sounds as if the battle may have come to them for some reason. You had brought them aboard, and they were a bit more hesitant the last time for some reason. And it seems as though they've been dwelling on something, which I think after sustained effort and division amongst the group of officers, as casually as possible, you might have convinced them enough that they are prepared to chat on the matter. So, I think with all of that said, this is where we would start off our session, with the Aegis presently maintaining its position outside of the debris field. So, I asked the question just before we went on recording, and I would like people's thoughts now. Would you prefer to go ahead and start with an expository scene with the Wanderers, as it were? Would
Yeah,
any?
sure.
Let's see. In that case, I think that we should start off with the one person who was not present the last time, Lieutenant Commander Patel, who is presently walking through the corridors. You had been on watch last time whilst the captain and most of the other senior officers decided to greet the guests that you've acquired. Granted, you did so partly by grappling them to the ship. Uh, Suffice to say, though, you were able to effectively retrieve them and bring them aboard. They didn't give you much of a struggle here, and they were perfectly happy to talk out the situation. So, Patel, as you're walking down from the bridge, I guess first question would be, when the captain made clear that she wanted senior officers down in this session, would you be calling with you other NPCs? Crichton and Connolly, I suppose, are both options for this, as they are helm and communications, respectively.
Yeah, I think we usually bring Crichton and Connolly along, so I think they would be sort of flanking me on either side.
Okay. Yep. They will walk down the hallway with you in the Aegis. You are making your way through the the decks of this Daedalus class vessel. It, even to this day, so many months into space, remains a very cramped setup. Uh, Unfortunately, the Aegis was just it was built in a time where uh, space is at an economy, and it's even more so in here than it is on the other ships. Certainly, the hallways are cramped on other Earth vessels. You know enough about Starfleet designs to at least have that impression, but the Daedalus, built with as many redundancies and like sort of over-engineered to be easier to repair, somehow manages to essentially have a bit less in the way of creature comfort or space to it. There's just so much at work here, um, that it feels like the bulkheads close in just like a few centimeters too close, or like the railing comes down just a little bit closer to your head than you would like.
And we have more people in less space than the NX class does. So
Indeed, indeed. So you have a crew of closer to 150 officers and crew between MACOs and Starfleet officers, as this is an era where you are operating with an integrated crew.
imagine lots of like bumping into people in the hallway, or like having to do the thing where you like shimmy off to one side when somebody walks past you.
There's definitely some level of whenever there's a shift change or an alert is called, people are definitely trying to keep themselves as ordered, moving on along one side of the hall. For now, you have the relative freedom to where you can walk pretty much down the center of the hallway, or you could still instinctively keep to a side, but you would have the option to move more freely. Um, Crichton and Connolly
It's just
would also be close alongside.
it's just a slightly more roomy submarine.
Yeah, it's a nuclear submarine.
Pretty much. An
Yeah.
antimatter submarine. Isn't that terrifying? Well, well, in any case, you, after some minutes coming down through the turbolift, and I don't know if they call it the turbolift in this era. In any case, you ride down the necessary deck or so in order to arrive at the meeting room, where you find yourself in. Let's see. You arrive in the conference room where you see that most of the senior staff has already arrayed themselves at one end of the table up through the middle. Saral is also here. He was at the he was at the social function, so I decided he would just naturally follow along, probably keeping your chair warm. Um,
Yeah, Patel. When he walks in, he sees Sorrel sitting in his seat, and he does the sort of like raising a finger to make a point, and then just sort of hmm. He's way too polite to kick Sorrel out of his chair.
If I see Patel come in, she'll just look over and say, "Saral."
Of course. And I shimmy over. The Vulcan shimmy.
ah, yes, the famous Vulcan shimmy. Okay, so characters are moved aside. Connolly will come up to you, Saral, and stand alongside. Crichton will stand on the opposite end. For the other seats appear to be occupied. Patel, you notice at the far end of the room, sure enough, there are three individuals from species that you recognize. The Aurelians, you were at least aware of in passing. You recall that when the Aegis was about to make it out of dock, Captain Barton had one on hand in engineering, um, who unfortunately seemed to have entered some sort of hibernation cycle and thus was allowed back to his homeworld after the Alpha Centauri business concluded. There is, of course, a Denobulan whom you are plenty familiar with, at least as a species matter, not this particular one. Um, and then at the end of the table, there sits a younger human female, it would seem. someone who does not look out of place, at least in age and general complexion, like for someone that would be in one of your classes if you were back at university.
Is she like grad student age or?
I would say she's like right on the line transitioning from undergrad to graduate student. Although the wear is something quite a bit more weathered. She sports a leather jacket, a utility belt, and sort of has the general sense of like if you were to ever the handful of times where I'm sure that you, as given your geological focus among other things, the handful of times where you've gone out and done field work, you probably know some students that felt a little better going outdoors and having that particular adventure over others. She looks like she would be very much in her element there. There's a certain sense of swagger about her, I suppose.
The swagger of a field work type person. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
I nod greetings to them and to the Denobulan. I say in heavily accented Denobulan, like greetings or whatever they would say.
You get the too broad smile of a or no, Denobulan smiles aren't really that broad. The corners of their mouth just come up entirely too high for comfort. There's an uncanny valley element to it. You get that off the Denobulan woman who greets you in kind. I didn't realize that they had somebody so fluent here. Communications?
Oh no, just somebody who's had a little bit to do with your people in the past.
Oh, I should rather like to know a bit more about that later.
I would like to introduce Commander Kieran Battelle, my science officer.
The human starts. I recall some word from when things had initially come home. You were with the initial group that was that had visited back home, were you not?
You have me at a disadvantage back home being.
I'm I'm so sorry. Alpha Centauri.
Oh, yeah, that was yes, that was my first mission actually with the ship, together with Lieutenant Shira and Commander Romanov and Dr. Lambeth.
Commander Battelle, this is Kara Sloan.
I don't think he immediately recognizes the name, and he just nods pleasantly and says, "Miss Sloan."
She'll uh, she'll just greet your nod in kind and say, "Well, I'll admit this isn't the most comfortable situation, but we don't have much choice, and you seem to have been the general impression I guess we've gotten at this point is that you don't seem to be that much of a well, I guess we're assuaged enough where we can continue this conversation. So we've obviously, well, I've been away from home for some time now. As I had mentioned earlier, I was actually on the way back home when the news of Alpha Centauri came, and I had gotten a message beforehand advising that I delay my return and stay about a bit longer. That actually came out to be some very sage advice because, well, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have met these two here. She says, gesturing to her compatriots. See, we'd met on an outpost just a few light years outside of the. We'd met a few light years at an outpost a few light years outside of the Grisula system when, well, we had something of a chance encounter. At least I had the opportunity to crash a dinner with Denobulans, which they're always a very inviting bunch when it comes to that. The Dr. Natala interjects, "Oh, it's no trouble at all. communal meals, all that sort of thing. We're always looking to expand our social gatherings, understandings, and what more human, which at this time still, at the time seemed pretty novel. A welcome addition, to be sure. Yes, yes. Uh, so we had gotten a chance to talk a little bit about some of the work we were doing, and well, turns out we were in something of the same field, archaeology. Um, the well, I guess the slightly longer version of the story is that I had been, uh, I'd honestly done it more as a hobby. The point was to test out some new designs for smaller scaled warp engines, something that was an interest of the Cochrane Institute, particularly to see whether it could handle a longer range trip, and I managed to connect with another science mission in the Stamaris sector, something that was uh, something a sort of peaceful exchange essentially with the Ithanites. I thought I'd invite my expertise. Well, where was it you were again, Doctor? Phalebia. Yes, we were there at the invitation of the Phalebian civilization and their government. They were in the midst of excavating a mission, and we were present on a joint basis as a gesture of friendship between our two peoples. It was really quite interesting. We got a chance to sample much of the local culture and investigate a very interesting set of ruins that we'd discovered together. Yes, all manner of interesting glyphs, information that was information in terms of like pictographs, characters of a deeply alien sort. We had a lot to relate on that experience because, well, as the conversation deepened and the longer we went on it, we realized the glyphs and characters that we were reviewing had a great deal in common. Both of them bore very similar sets of bases essentially to the characters. There were similar patterns such that we could discern anything, and most significantly, they the dating on them is fairly connected. Somewhere in the range of about 13,000 years prior. The Doctor and Sloane share sharp of a look. It's for all the sake of things, let us not hold them up. The Aurelian enters into the conversation. It's highly improbable. And I told them as such when they split off to try to conduct further work, not helped by the fact that they had consumed quite a considerable bit of spirits and other foods at a certain point. My involvement, they were coming to consult me because they were looking to review some of their information. My people happen to know much of the stars, and it turned out that some of the patterns and glyphs they had were actually depicting what would conform roughly to star charts. Some of them things that would be very difficult to discern from the technology of that level. That would be the phrase.
Certainly now you have my attention, she smiles. I certainly do enjoy or entertain the notions of archaeology, but pardon the fellow scientists that I'm surrounded by. She says a diplomatic smile, but it's not exactly my purview. Also, isn't to the mention of 13,000 years, she looks over to Patel as well as the team. isn't such things a likelihood? With a similar cultural evolutions can happen concurrently sometimes in such a manner, whether written or otherwise. But star charts, look, the captain's floundering a little bit.
Mhm.
Science
Uh,
shit, which is
yeah.
neat,
I
but
think
also
that
just kind of like a bit.
Well, certainly that occurred on Earth in remote areas, parallel development and ideas, and certainly any being with certain sensory inputs might design visuals that would be similar. So I would guess, from sort of an engineering point of view, species might engineer similar looking star charts
Yeah,
based on a fundamental understanding and having all looked up at the stars at one point.
but do
What is
consider, Commander, that when somebody's looking up to the stars from two completely different planets in completely different parts of the galaxy, that those stars will look different. So there has to be a common frame of reference somewhere.
there's also another thing about this, Sloan interjects. Whatever observational capacity and wherever these people would be located, at that level of technology, there's one thing they should not be able to discern, and that was clearly made out with the relics. This was where Fenn's expertise came in most significantly. Ooh, no, yes, yes. In addition to the star charts, there were overlays of other patterns which suggested tracing of higher dimensional formulas and other elements that have a direct correlation to spacefaring travel. Sloane's waiting for him to get to the point, stops and says, they have subspace charts.
I
She
have
just leans
two.
forward, like that's makes it from interesting to absolutely riveting. Continue.
I have two questions, like general information. Like, what is the current thought on that? Like, every species is basically the same, that met each other, which seems highly unlikely in an infinite world of infinite possibilities. Is there any theories around that, or is this just a big shrug?
Well, I had alluded to it in the Discord, but since, I'll let Crichton voice this. This goes well beyond something that would show up in Hodgkin's law of parallel planetary development. Certainly no culture on Earth or Vulcan or anything else that I know of, would have had any capability of tracking anything like that. If you were asking more about the idea of like common ancestry between the species, that is definitely like not known in this era.
Oh no, everyone would hate that idea.
Yeah.
And the
Everybody
other
did hate that
question,
idea.
I mean, it's unlikely that everyone is literally the same, except for some nose ridges. Um, and the other question that I'm trying to remember because I forgot. Ah, no. Um, do is there anything known about precursors in this
uh,
era of
uh,
space?
the captain will throw that in then too and say, certainly there's a number of pre-current empires, the remains of pre-current empires littered about the stars. Certainly, this could be those both races could be easily been either divergent paths or perhaps even subjugated races.
Or merely influenced by the presence of a race that was able to travel the stars, seeding possible knowledge. It is interesting that we live in a neighborhood where there are multiple species that have only entered the stars recently.
Well, the pattern is uh, definitely an intriguing one, and certainly there are some species that have been operational far longer in this region of space, although many have receded. Indeed, I don't believe that the oldest I would know would have been the Score, who retreated back to their own kingdom within very tight confines back during Allah's time. Of course, you don't see them terribly far afield outside of the a handful of libraries which they operate, and of course even then they're not particularly partial to visitors unless you can trick them. And then of course it is also a problem that the marks they left on worlds were mostly scorching.
She just pauses and then just starts rubbing the bridge of her nose a little bit. Puns aside, continue with this exposition.
Certainly, I will continue to deliver the plot details, Captain. A
She
very
just smiles.
Yep.
Um,
So we spent quite a bit of time working on this and gave up quite a bit. I obviously stayed out here for longer than I planned, even after the crisis seemed to have passed. Natala decided to remain with us while her crew proceeded back to Denobula, and well, Then has been giving us quite a considerable bit of information that his people aren't usually partial to lending out. Certainly it is nothing, and particularly when we have something so enticing. So we started comparing the research that we picked up from Stamaris and Phalabia respectively, and we found a lot there. There were some elements of star charts, of course, that we mentioned, not just for stars, but subspace. We also found that the glyphs, near as we could discern, there's some sort of alphanumeric pattern to them, and we were trying to feed it through a translator, trying to model it out, but we kind of hit a bit of a wall, because every time we would try to synthesize the data from it, or try to find, like, something that we could draw out common threads, the information would interact in weird ways, or it would seem that the model, like whatever types of models or translations we would collect were changing. It's as if we were trying to. It's as if we were trying to put together pieces of a puzzle, but instead of being solid pieces, they began to morph in a sense, or like they were something semi-solid, and as the shape evolved, we felt like we were getting something slightly different, but we just don't have the ability to process all of that, even with the relative sophistication of our shuttle's onboard computer. That's when we decided ultimately that we needed to take the craft back to Alpha Centauri. I figured that if I could seek help at the Cochrane Institute, the technology there is sufficiently advanced that we might be able to learn something new and try to understand what it is that we're mapping. And sent word back home, and that's when they came.
I have a question, a clarification on what you just said. You said that an individual symbol, when run through multiple times, acts as if it is something different every time, or
Not entirely. It's more we attempted to cross-reference the information between the two sites and trying to see if we could work out any sort of common translation, intermingle the star charts, all that sort of thing. And as we did, everything shifted a bit. Some of that, at least on the stellar end, accounted for I suppose it seemed to it could account for some degree of stellar drift. I'm not entirely certain there. It was more interesting, honestly, what the subspace visibility did. It seemed to take on unusual shapes, and well, uh, we don't know enough yet. But I think it may be a case of it could be a case of limited processing power. There could be incomplete data, but I think that we're not entirely. We just don't know. We need something a tad more capable than what what the Centauri ship is capable of providing us. No offense, Lily, or Sloan, or what? I'm sorry. I know there's a Lily Sloan and there's a Kara Sloan. You were telling me about your older sister, your mother, you have. It's fine, then. Just stop.
I mean, maybe we could have a look at the data. This is a science ship after all. And I have to admit, processing of complex data is quite a passion of mine.
If you're comfortable with it.
Kara pauses for a moment. Do I have your assurance, Colonel? She stops again. Lillian, do I have your assurance that this isn't going to just go straight to Mako or Starfleet or wherever, and that you aren't going to cut us out of this?
As long as it's not cataclysmic or affects the lives of many others.
I don't think it should. I honestly don't know why it would do anything of the sort.
I mean, this also raises the question why the Vulcans were so interested in your research.
I don't know. I don't even know if that's why they were here. All I know is that after we informed Alpha Centauri that we were returning, we got, she gestures out through the porthole, that welcoming committee, I suppose. And the Andorians weren't too far behind them. They had us in the Vulcans had us in a tractor beam when the Andorians warped in, and they all just started shooting each other.
Did you just send a message to Alpha Centauri that you're returning, or did you send any requests to the Cochrane Institute?
I did request that the Cochrane Institute prepare something, that we had interesting archaeological data. I didn't provide them a complete picture, but I may have included a small sample file. Something just to get things started.
Does Soral have any notions of how do I phrase this? Kind of what Vulcan interest could be, like in this area of space, this research? Because this sounds like someone picked up a word they were really interested in, like keyword when you phone somewhere and mention bomb.
Keyword Romulan.
Yeah, keyword Romulan, keyword bomb, president. That gets like processed and sent along. So there must have been something in the data that triggered someone.
Please stop.
Obviously,
eyes, Felix.
come again. Come again.
No,
I will.
So obviously, I'm not privy to any Vulcan intelligence or any military stuff, but like what floats around Vulcan scientific thinking, maybe.
I mean, I can't think of anything that would necessarily. There's definitely of course, the Vulcan Science Directorate has a great many interests when it comes to this, and I'm sure they have an archaeology subdepartment that would be plenty interested in acquiring more information on this.
Yeah, but this is aggressive. They took like 7 ships out of a war effort.
Yeah, this is clearly intervention from the high command, and that is where your logic is more uncertain. The notion that they would want to be involved in something like this, or that they would have sent cruisers and capital ships to this of this scale, all to secure this single vessel here, seems very unusual. Frankly, the fact that the Andorians actually chased this group also seems odd, and that could suggest further significance. This could just be Andorian impulse at play. It's hard to say what's going on, but this is unfortunately, Soral, not something where you are particularly well equipped with insights on this.
Yeah, no, 100%.
But you're like the logic demands your attention as far as saying that if the High Command were involved here, then they had an interest. They would not
Yeah, absolutely.
arbitrarily come out here.
That's what I'm thinking. There's someone was really I hate to use that word in that context, but triggered by what news they heard and were like, this needs to be handled now. Damn the consequences, and the consequences are heavy, apparently.
Can we analyze a copy of the data that was sent to Alpha Centauri, the data that caught the attention of the Vulcan High Command?
Well, we're just finding out now.
Yeah, I'm asking the scientists.
Oh, okay.
Like if they can give us, like if they don't want to give us access to their entire like library of research, that's fine. But can we at least get that sample to try to figure out what the Vulcans found so interesting?
I would like to look at the library.
Well, I mean, yes, me too. But
We would be willing to share what we have here, provided it's done under our supervision. Sloan says carefully. If your ship, I don't know just how much processing power your ship has relative to our own, but if you have a more sophisticated computer system, then perhaps we could work together on this.
I might have something we can try.
I'll look at the schematics of their ship. How does their computer compare to ours? I would assume Aegis has much more computer capacity.
Yeah, I will say, pulling up like any technical scans that you may have taken once you had impounded the vessel. Maybe that's too harsh a word to use in this case.
Too harsh a word. Paused them in their
Detained. We've detained.
In any case, from what you can discern, their vessel is fairly sophisticated. The Aegis does definitely have more processing capabilities. The computer core is such that it has, and it's just larger in scale, basically, and it is something that was recently upgraded. It's not a situation though where like you could necessarily match a great lab and whatever the equivalent of supercomputers are in this era.
Multiple neural networks working, in congruence, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm not sure that they properly have neural net scaled computers in this era, but it's pretty sophisticated. It's still I think that you are still well shy of the era of duotronics, but
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, you're probably carrying solid state much further than it would have been in this era, and or like much more advanced in this era, and possibly there's even some sort of interstep, like technologically speaking.
and we also have the advantage of having maybe of having like more military grade versions of the software that they are using. Like I don't imagine they have as good of a UT as Crichton does, for example.
Certainly, thankfully, as starting as a Starfleet vessel and still largely being under their purview, um, this is still an era where Starfleet, like as far as that end of the service and the design ethos, is much more scientifically inclined, or you are basically space NASA, um, with the Makos providing more of the guns. But I mean,
Well, I meant more like I guess government grade, not military grade. Like they're operating on civilian tech, and we are probably a little bit.
We're government grade and many size bigger.
Yeah, we don't have anything like quantum computing, but we've got the fastest thing we can that's available.
They have small little portable servers. We have like industrial servers.
Right.
So we can process a lot more than they can.
Yeah.
At a short time.
Yep. All of that would be fair.
Certainly, we can work on that. If you don't mind, Miss Sloan, if you allow myself and my crew to have a Mild private discussion.
Well, um, do what you need to, but we will, so long as you are prepared to agree with our terms, we'd be happy to share in this and maybe see if we can't learn something. I will admit to one other point. We could use some spare parts if you have them. In particular, the whole business with the Vulcans did rather severely damage our main deflector array. We aren't much good going at any scale of warp, and impulse can be frankly a little dicey. So
I've already gamed that out, so that's on the table as well. I can have engineering teams assist your people in getting her back shipshape.
She just eyes you, Romanov, because you're sounding like a captain. I think that would be fine, Lieutenant Commander. If you allow, Miss Sloan, for my teams to help you out.
yep. Same condition under our supervision. Then Natala, if one of you would be, well, I suppose if you don't mind, we will all head back to the ship for now, and then we'll work out who stays with whom. If that's all good to go, I would hope that you would provide us some repairs or assistance, even if you decide that that arrangement isn't suitable for you. In which case, we will just fix ourselves up and go on our way.
It'd be unkind to leave you high and dry.
No, out the airlock you go.
Well, in that case, I'll let you chat on the matter, and we'll wait for you.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, Sloan and Fen will get up, and they will walk alongside the table. They will walk along the side of the wall nearer the door, passing by Romanov and Shira and Crichton on their way out. The Denobulan, Dr. Natala, will pass by the way near the portholes, walking past Dr. Lambeth, stopping at your chair, Patel, and placing a hand on your shoulder. If you have the spare time, perhaps we would have a chance to talk, Commander.
When she puts the hand on his shoulder, there's a barely perceptible little jump.
Yep.
He's not used to being touched. But he politely says, "Yes, of course, I would like that." In like almost broken Denobulan.
She'll greet you with a warm smile and then just walk on her way, joining the rest of her shipmates through the open door before that closes. And with that, you
Is
are.
it just broken Denobulan, or are you actually saying something completely different, unaware of it?
I think he speaks it well, but he's got a very, very thick accent, and his grammar is all over the place. He gives a good effort.
Okay, so with that, a few chairs have emptied. Crichton brushes off a feather or two as he sits down. The rest of you are able to join. I hope you don't mind, Saral. I gave your character a seat.
Finally.
She's just continuing. She's been like following Kara's eyes toward mostly the broken up ships outside, and just kind of been distracted by them while listening in.
Captain, I have
yes
2 questions. First question is, maybe it might be advantage to take a look at the Vulcan ships, if they have any data on what interested them so much to go to these extreme lengths for these 3 people and whatever they have. And second question is, he also looks outside. Is it prudent to stay here?
I'm in agreement in both angles. I've already planned for recovery teams to pick apart the Andorian Vulcan databases, both for intelligence that Starfleet certainly does not have, and would help secure and protect our people. Not to mention protect us, depending on the deployments. And yes, it would also be a boon for finding out what phrases or terms would rattle both the Andorians and Vulcans to be brought here. It's been the fourth, if not fifth time we have encountered odd movements from some unknown figure in a distance. I am starting to wonder if they're not related to each other. Certainly, there's been a number of activations of intelligence assets, and far more often than probably should. Crichton, ever since the detainment of the Lily, has there been any signals or communications, any concerns from the Lily, the ship, this area?
None that I've monitored, sir. I don't think that there's anybody out among the Vulcan or Andorian ships left broadcast at this point, unfortunately, and not much power to do so. It's entirely possible, given the sophistication of both species, or the technology of the High Command and the Imperial Guard, there could always be something broadcasting on an EM band that I'm not used to looking at, or that we could even detect. But nothing I have discerned.
Be more inquisitive and look at things that even you pondered could possibly be used. I want to take no chances.
Regardless of that, it seems like at some point somebody's going to be coming along. Either the Andorians or the Vulcans will realize something happened here, and they will send somebody to investigate.
I mean, they know something happened here. We detected trails from both ships.
Yep. Connolly
Or
said.
both parties.
Yep, Connolly will interject. Yeah, there's at least a few Vulcan vessels, and maybe an Andorian ship got away. It's hard to say though. I'll admit I'm not clear on the whole fleet practices or anything that go with that. But I guess that's more your department, Lieutenant. He says, gesturing over to Shira. How has Lieutenant Shira been up to this point, Craig?
She
Cold.
probably zoned out during the more technical discussions on the anthropological details, which is just solely boring for her. But may have perked up when discussion went to how the Vulcans were reacting.
But also what I was thinking about, considering to what lengths the Vulcans went, and I think this is a question to you, Shira, and I apologize if it's inappropriate, but looking at the forces on both sides, was this an Andorian battle group that found some Vulcans where they shouldn't be and pursued, or was that an Andorian group that also tried to pursue this data and, despite bad odds, tried its best? Like, what was the onset of this engagement? Because this is odd all around, and I'm just trying to figure out if there's both parties are interested in this.
I don't know. I need more information to find out what the motives were for Imperial Guard vessels to be out this far. It's possible they spotted Vulcan ships going somewhere unusual, so sent a group after them, and then Vulcans picked them up on sensors and decided to attack. Or perhaps there was some kind of intercept of information and decided to send a group to investigate. But
Or it could be the
can't
same.
really tell.
It could be the same agents that we've been dealing with the past 7-8 months. She says, regardless, Saral, take your shuttle and a engineering team to the Vulcan ships and mine their database if it's salvageable at all.
See what I can do.
Romanov, you and Shira and a team go to the more salvageable of the Andorian wreckages and get their databases. I also, from both teams, as a secondary objective, is to look for any weapons or defensive technology that could possibly be salvaged. We're dealing, as mentioned before in a previous meeting between Lieutenant and Lieutenant Commander and I, that we are certainly have been spending a lot more time the last year being overclass and certainly fighting way above our weight limit. It's time to even the odds a little bit. This is a perfect chance to, despite the grim situation.
This seems like a good move.
She just eyes Shira to see how Shira. Can I insight Shira on how she feels about that directive? Hello?
The loot the bodies order.
Yeah.
Desecrate the war grave.
Also, Craig, if you are saying anything, we are
No,
not.
I'm just.
So
Just
how
processing.
does Shira
Staring
how
at
does
you.
Shira look? Or would you like me to roll or something?
Roll.
Okay.
How, let's call this, presence and, no, control plus command. Let's see how delicately, Sharp can word this.
Presence command, I can do that.
Yep. And,
Diplomacy.
diplomacy, I think, definitely comes into play. Shira, would you like to contest this in a fashion, or to see whether
Yeah,
this gets
sure. Why not?
Okay.
I'm gonna spend a momentum just so I get the ability to reroll with cautious.
Fair enough. Go ahead and drop another, at least one more since we're between sessions,
There you
yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to figure what would lend itself most to containing your sense of outrage. I guess control plus command would be here, or perhaps
Okay.
if more, I guess if the idea is does Shira's righteous indignation leap out, then daring and command would make sense, given that the captain is trying to soothe that sentiment.
Go with control.
Okay, so with the relative success there, um, I think that she is sufficiently diplomatic about it that whatever offense it would give, well, at least the way I was seeing it, it probably inclines a bit more favorably, or it's not as rough. How you wish to treat this is ultimately up to you, however, Shira.
I did try to be gentle about it while also proving a tactical reason why we have to do so.
What would I know about integrating Andorian systems on a Earth ship?
There'd be very little precedent for it. The Andorians, and the Vulcans for that matter, nobody's willing to share technology in quite that manner. Of course, the Andorians have a few protectorate species, and you have from time to time supplied weapons in defense of other peoples or to help with groups, sometimes to just disrupt the Vulcans. But the Andorians, they don't wholesale provide technology to peoples or like provide the know-how unless it's it is a species that they have integrated into the Empire as a protectorate. So the Arcanites are the biggest example there. There are Arcanites who are trained in exactly how to build any parts of those systems, but they are practically citizens within the Empire. Uh, all that said, from what you understand of the Aegis, the systems are very rugged and modular, so it's possible that you might be able to pull some components if there were something together. It's a big question.
I'm unaware of any agreement between Earth and Andoria that permits Earth to use Andorian weapons, even if they're salvaged.
If you would like to remain fighting with the weapons we have right now against larger and larger threats, Lieutenant.
Vulcan ships have weapons too, and they're
Agreed.
not here to say no.
Neither are the Andorians, she says.
Yes, they are, sir. I'm here.
Then, for your ease of conscience, I'm making an order, Lieutenant Shira. If you wish for me to find another security officer that can do the job, I will find as such.
Yeah, you see Shira's very tense.
There
It's like-
is,
It's like an eye twitch.
yeah, there is all
Antenna
but
twitch, I suppose.
there's a firm stance the captain's making. It's definitely of authority.
There's one other consideration, ma'am, if I can speak
One
freely.
second, Lieutenant Commander. She puts her finger up. Not looking away a second from the lieutenant. Would that be a problem, Lieutenant Shira?
Salvaging those weapons and deploying them on this ship without an agreement from the Empire would be a problem for me, sir.
Very well. Relieved and dismissed.
You got a replacement in mind, Captain, or you being hasty here?
That would be my prerogative, Lieutenant.
She'll nod and leave.
Lieutenant Shira exits the room, and with it, perhaps some semblance of oxygen being pulled out as well, metaphorically speaking.
It's after Shira has left, and I assume there's like a moment or two of uncomfortable, still tense silence. It's like Soral is just like, while I have no vested interest in this, I feel obliged to say that the Vulcan High Command would also not look kindly upon acquisition of the Vulcan technology.
They
I
can
mean,
add-
honestly, anyone with any morals might be a little suspect of acquiring technology under these circumstances.
It's like Soral is literally like shrugging. It's like, again, as he has no investment in this, but it's just like, I just want to point out.
Fine. Restricted to defensive technology.
I'm happy to look what we have. After all, it's your mess to sort out.
And if the Vulcans have a problem with that, they can add it to the countless other complaints they've had regarding Earth.
Might also be a good time to ask them why they sent an entire battle group to acquire a small shuttle with 3 scientists.
Oh, I am sure they'll give them the same answer the Andorians will give. They saw the opposing ship and they wish to defend the location and those within it. She'll just... The mood's already kind of killed. She just looks around at the group. How's everybody else look?
Patel very clearly wants to say something, but you know him well enough at this point that he doesn't have the words to say what he wants to say.
Yeah.
He's visibly disturbed.
If there's no other questions or suggestions, this meeting is dismissed.
Oleska definitely looks disturbed, like Kieran does. As for what she wanted to say, the read would be, it might be a moot point now.
Gotcha. Well,
Although she will look over at Lillian. A word after the meeting, if you allow.
Very well. Romoth, you can say, Kieran, I'd like to see you in my office when I'm done.
He doesn't say anything. He just nods.
okay. With that, the room is going to clear, and I think that from here, we will probably split off into a few scenes just to reckon with everything that's taken place. I will ask, beyond Romanov and Sharp, like basically since we have two Romanov-oriented or rather two Sharp-oriented scenes here, um, is there anything anyone else would want to have between now and then? It's obviously, Saral, if there's anything you want to do, Shira, if there's anything, Lambeth, um, uh, just, I want to make sure we are breaking things up well.
Yeah. I think it might be worth someone, maybe Lambeth, maybe not, having a chat with Shira to get her perspective
Well,
on this.
definitely not me.
I mean, I think that could be interesting, but
Yeah, that's a good
Oh,
idea.
so do I wanted to get stabbed close the door? Well, not today, apparently.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Ben, we can let you and Shira have a scene after this if you're up for it, Craig. And
Absolutely.
then after that, we can do a ready room scene between Romanov and Sharp. Well, we'll do that first, then the scene with Lambeth and Shira, and then we'll have the ready room sequence.
I'd also like to have one briefly with Saral and Crichton, like on the turbo lift, basically.
Okay, then let's go. We'll go Romanov Sharp. The uncomfortable elevator scene. The Lambeth and Shira, and then top off that set with Patel and Sharp, basically. That way we have a good rotation for everyone.
Sure.
All right. So as the remainder of the staff clear out of the briefing room, Sharp, you and Romanov are left alone. Unless you say otherwise, the two of you would remain seated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Permission to speak freely? This is all off the record.
I understand what permission to speak freely.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. I've always supported your decisions. If it appears that I haven't, I felt that you've made the right tactical decisions and command decisions, and we are all flawed beings, to preserve the lives of the crew and try to make the best decisions in interest of Earth and its allies. At first, when you mentioned the idea, the engineer within me thought, no, that's a great idea. Let's even the odds. I'm sick of, like you said, fighting a weight class below. But one thing I urge you to consider is that at some point, these conflicts war is usually not sustainable. Either there's a victor or there has to be some kind of negotiation or treaty. One of the things that occurred to me after that was that we have to be able to go to the Andorians, and we have to be able to forge a peace with them. If it's discovered we integrated technology without their consent, that could create a diplomatic situation. That's what occurred to me afterwards. Look, I'm always for the idea of upgrading things. With the Vulcans, I think we can get away with a little bit more. But just food for thought, Colonel. That was really it. We don't want to affect the chance for peace in our managing of the moment. I consider you a friend. I think you're a very good commander. I think definitely we are all under the effect of, like you said, it's by being a featherweight in the ring with heavyweights.
It isn't just that, Romanov, though I appreciate the assurances that we are somehow friends. There is always going to be tension for Lieutenant Shira at the current moment, given her situation, personal situation, that anything involving the Andorians is going to be a conflict of interest, and certainly a contention in order to allow for any order that might somehow be in conflict to the duty she had as an Imperial Guard officer. However, both the captain of the ship and her role as the head of security of this ship should be the survival of this ship and its crew. On top of with her being exiled, it should be trying our best to figure out ways in not only our continuing endurance, but hopefully finding methods in which we can bring peace and minimize the loss of life from both sides.
Isn't that being a bit of a neutral island? Because we're not in this war, but we're on the sidelines of it. That was
a neutral
really...
island that does not have the capabilities of defending itself will...
I know. It's the most... You are faced with the most difficult of decisions on how to handle this. You know, and I don't envy that in any way, shape, or form. But it was just something I wanted you to consider most seriously, just as I believe it's my job, you know, as engineer to advise you. So hopefully we have somebody who can fill her,
as both chief engineer of my ship and a chief specialist within my ship, part of the council here. You certainly do have a voice, and your opinions do matter to me. It's something I do put in consideration.
I know.
Thank you, Romanov.
Okay, well, that was it. Just a thought that had occurred to me I felt I had to share.
I appreciate it. Dismissed.
Okay. She steps out.
She just waits to get off, or waits for her to get to, for Romanov to leave before getting up and just looking at the freaking debris. And that's where we'll end.
Yep. And as you stare out into the wreckage of broken vessels lost in battle, for what cause you do not know, you are certainly perturbed, perhaps for different reasons from your crew, but nonetheless quite bothered by the situation. So far as how others are processing that, we join some of our crew in the turbolift, specifically Commander Patel, Ensign Crichton, and Mr. Saral. Would I be correct to guess that the plan was to head up to the bridge? Or at least that's where you were going, Patel.
I mean, Crichton and I definitely, I don't know where Sorrel was going, but I figured the plot would take him to a turbolift.
Yeah.
I wanted to head to my lab, which I feel is in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But we can make it the turbolift, like up or down. It's like this is...
Just going for a ride.
Yeah. I think there's a main central turbolift, maybe 2 lines that go like that would reach the upper decks as effectively. You're probably on like deck 3 for the meeting room.
It's just stairs, it's not even a turbolift yet.
Yep, and the bridge officers get priority, so in order to go down, you have to go up. The other lift is in use. So yeah, you enter.
Damn it, plot.
Yeah. It plot do be like that though sometimes. Um, anyway, yeah, the three of you step into the turbo lift, and it first heads up for deck 1 to take you to the bridge.
So I think before we get into the turbo lift, like it would have been, at least from my side, it would have been like a silent walk from the meeting room. But then like right before we enter the turbo lift, and like if anybody else is around, they would hear Patel say something to Crichton like, Mr. Crichton, I want you to work with the visiting scientists and try to see if you can run that sample data package that they sent to Alpha Centauri through the UT and see if there's anything that you can make of it. Sort of getting the business out of the way before the doors close, if you know what I mean.
Fair enough. That shot where you start talking right as you go through the doors, and everyone like turns around to face the camera so that they can see the doors closing on them.
Yep.
So you get that line, and Sorrel, you certainly would have heard that. Crichton, like as we have a close-in camera with you in the turbo lift, Crichton says, "Certainly, I suppose then it would make sense. Mr. Sorrel, would you be interested in trying to help me figure that out?"
Of course, if you need my help.
Yes, I could do so from the bridge, or if we can get the sample data downloaded. I know that you like to work sometimes in the lab, or even on the shuttle if you'll have me.
Sure.
Yeah, wherever is most convenient for you, sir. Or Sorrel. I know you're not ranking up.
I think he's kind of.
I'm sorry. That was.
He's delightfully uncomfortable, so Zoral just says like, "Sir, it's just fine."
Is Crichton's defense mechanism just blabbering?
A little bit.
Is it that vibe? Okay.
Crichton
is the GM's defense mechanism just blabbering?
Ouch.
It's charming.
you wound me, sir. Straight in the center of the cosmos.
Listen, we set phasers on stun in this Discord.
I'm sorry.
You're good. That being said, I do think that for Crichton, he's usually at least fairly put together when it comes to most situations, and as somebody trained in communication, he mostly picks his words carefully, even if sometimes they come out to awkward effect, or even if the statement has a more unintentionally humorous quality. From the GM's perspective, completely humorous. But yeah, Patel, frankly, both of you would observe that for Crichton, it's a little bit less characteristic.
I think Patel and Crichton are sort of. They probably both recognize that they're sort of kindred spirits a little bit, in some ways.
Exactly, which would definitely tell you Crichton's feeling the slight rush of adrenaline of like feeling like he's witnessed or been party to something wrong.
It's been a long time since I've watched Enterprise. Refresh my memory. Do they have like the turbo lifts where you have to like hold the little thing so they can move, like the little handle, and if you take your hand off the handle, the turbo lift stops?
No.
If so, I do that.
For this one, it's still a button push. It doesn't respond to voice commands, but there isn't the lift bar that you hold, which I'd imagine is a security measure to, you can only access a TOS turbo lift if you are grasping it and the computer like confirms biometrics. That's my guess to the thing.
Okay. Well, either way, the trip is only 3 decks, so I'm going to push the pause button on the turbo lift.
Yep.
So you're doing a Gibbs, basically.
I'm doing a what?
You have never seen NCIS?
No.
That's like the signature move. It's like they're in the elevator, he stops the elevator, talks to people, intimidates people, threatens people, talks to people.
This is like
it gets so frequent that I'm just wondering if people are like, "Oh, he's doing that thing again." When
yes, basically
freezes.
It's like the elevator's taking awful long. God damn it, it skips again, isn't it?
It's like the opposite of that. I'm definitely not intimidating anybody in this elevator. But yeah, I'm doing the dramatic pause of the elevator. And I'm gonna. So I imagine, like you said, we get in the elevator. We're all facing the door. The camera's like looking at us when the doors close or something. I'm gonna do the thing where I turn around and look at the other two guys, and look at Soral and say, "Soral, I don't know much about Vulcan customs. Perhaps I have a question. There's something that you can maybe enlighten me on. What does Vulcan culture make of disturbing the sight of the dead?" Or looting battlefield corpses.
Well, you're posing a complex question. I guess the shortest answer is, if logic demands it necessary, show some basic respect.
And in your estimation, as the closest thing that we have to a subject matter expert on the ship, how would you react if you were a Vulcan captain, admiral, and came across somebody who did something like that to one of your ships, to some of your dead?
What exactly?
Looting, stuff of that nature.
Well, what the captain is proposing boils down to appropriating technology illegally from a battle site, which I think from what area in space are we in? Is this like no man's land, or is anyone claiming this space? GM.
So in essence, you're actually kind of back out in the space that is between Earth and Tellarite space. You're actually tending more into what is nominally considered Earth-controlled space, or within like a zone. Not like. Let me think of the equivalent in nautical terms.
Is this international waters or not?
Is it like the economic zone? like the thing between the shore and international waters where it's sort of vague?
I would say, yeah, it's probably on the because I mean, when it comes to it, I'd say this is still probably more like international waters, but it's close enough to trade routes and the general.
It's close enough that you could make an argument that it's Earth-controlled space if you really wanted to.
Yeah, obviously there isn't so much of a Starfleet yet to enforce anything like that, but it's
Okay, thank you. Well, we are technically this isn't controlled space, so I guess it would default to salvage's right, which is different every other species, which would apply to me if I were alone. But this is an Earth vessel, so
it's just
this
a
is
cultural.
a legal question more than a cultural question. As a Vulcan captain, I don't think I can get my spine that stiff trying to impersonate one. How do I say this? Vulcans don't like to share their secrets.
Present company included, I'm sure. And a
Well,
very,
we all
very,
have our secrets.
a very nervous smile just to cope with the situation cracked.
I mean,
Thank
I
you,
would share more of my secrets, but no one visits me in my lab.
I'll have to make a point to do that in the future.
You have.
Again.
Yes, but this is to come back to this is a very, very questionable action in all regards, and it really comes down to whoever we encounter in the end and how they intend to pursue it. Could provoke quite an aggressive reaction. Could produce an annoyed but reasonable reaction. It certainly will spark a diplomatic incident of some sort. Considering that the Vulcans are currently at war, they might not be that aggressive about it, but, well, depends what they're hiding.
Thank you, Sorrel. I just wanted to understand from a cultural perspective what the perception might be of this course of action. I want it to be known, and he looks over to Crichton, that I don't have any intentions immediately of challenging the captain's orders. But I'm told a first officer's duty is to Make sure he sees things from ways that the captain maybe necessarily isn't seeing them from. And Mr. Crichton, I do have one task that I would consider urgent when you get back to the bridge. Bearing that in mind,
What can I do, sir?
we don't have a judge advocate general on board, but I would like to understand what the legal precedent for something like this would be. If you could check just a very brief skim, United Earth Law and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Anything that pertains to salvage and things of this nature.
I will see what I can discern, Commander, right away.
He cracks a very nervous smile and says, I just have a gap in my knowledge that I would like to fill, that's all. And you can tell that he's sort of saying that almost as much to reassure himself than to reassure both of you. And I push the unpause button on the elevator.
Yep. So you turn back around, re-engage the elevator, and you proceed back up to the bridge, where, at least in Patel's case, you will be getting off there. For Crichton's.
Question from the player.
Yeah.
Is this now is this now the second science officer who is considering taking over the ship from this particular captain?
No.
Panda, do you have any comments on that?
Probably the third, but for another game.
You do hear a very, very audible and like what's the word I'm looking for? Like when you sigh really, really hard, but like you're barely containing it, so it's like very like jittery. Like dude's not shaken, but he's clearly
100% fair. I mean, there are no good outcomes to this decision.
No. No, it's just.
Did we all
And
anticipate?
I respect that decision, but there are no good outcomes to it.
Yeah.
Did we all anticipate this session being this deep?
No.
I was just getting some Indiana Jones style fun kicked off.
Can we get back to the punching Nazis, please?
Yeah, we'll do that in a moment.
We'll have to-
Ideally, not with weapons looted from other people's corpses.
I mean, Indy did it all the time.
I mean, there might be a bullwhip on one of the ships if you look hard enough, and if you spend momentum hard enough. Oh, anyway, with that, let's move elsewhere in the ship, specifically over to Lieutenant Shiro's quarters.
All right.
Lieutenant, it is worth noting that for these scenes, if memory serves, you have actually been in your Imperial Guard uniform since the party from the Lily boarded. Was that? Do I remember that correctly, Shira?
No, I don't think she's been in Imperial uniform since we had a last run-in with Andorians.
Okay, all right. I just remember there was commentary to that effect, but in that case, we'll just presume the Earth jumpsuit then. So you are back in your quarters. Is there any particular activity you are tending to at this point?
Let's see. What can I punch which won't hurt my fist?
Nothing if you punch hard enough.
I mean, you're going to find something to punch quite soon if you need to let off soon.
Yeah. I don't know that Shira's yet had the idea to prop up a punching bag, or even like the small bag that is like that would come up to just head height and is like roughly that size. Let's just say that you are looking around your quarters thinking of something that you can punch with minimal damage. I suppose if you want to roll for it, then we can always fluff that out.
I don't think a roll's necessary on
Fair enough.
that.
So you were walking around your quarters somewhat frustrated and looking for an item that you could jab into, as that's about the only thing you think that might interrupt the steadily building rage, I would imagine, from the last situation, when you hear a chime at the door.
That was
Vex. Oh my god.
that was awesome.
The GM is steadily punching things up.
Yeah, I honestly thought there'd been a glitch in Discord for a moment.
Nope.
Someone had joined the call or something.
Nope.
I'll open the door.
Yep.
Hello. I
You
figure
see,
we
she
should.
she
I figure
kind of takes a
someone
moment
should
to
come
try
have a
to
chat with you.
compose herself. Hi, Doc.
Hi. I'm here to stop you doing anything stupid in the short term. Because I saw the look on your face, and it was not a good one. It's one I've seen many times myself.
Okay.
You want to chat?
Sure. Come in.
Thank you. Sure I'm not imposing or anything?
No, just it's not like I've got anything to do at the minute.
Yeah, guess not.
Got plenty of free time now.
Yeah, I take it you haven't got any plans for the short term? You just gonna take some time off till the captain reinstates you?
I guess so.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a moral person typically. I try not to be too much, but I don't know. Sometimes I try, and this whole situation is not a good one. And I am a little bit on your side more than I am the captain's at the moment.
Thank you. The fact there really shouldn't be any sides at all in this. But there's absolutely
I guess
nothing I can do to stop the captain going out there and send a salvage team to pull whatever they want out of any Andorian ship that's floating by.
I mean, there's a lot of things you could do to stop the captain from doing that. Most of them probably wouldn't involve you having a job at the end of it.
Yeah, right. Yes, short of that, there's nothing I can do. But don't expect me to go ahead and lead a damn salvage operation. I'm still a member of the Imperial Guard, whether they want me or not.
Yeah, that's a tough thing.
And the freaking liaison officer between the Imperial Guard and Starfleet, I've put the Imperial Guard's opinion forward in this.
Even though they don't like you.
And that they really don't like me. Well, some people do, some others don't, you know.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Yeah, but
I guess if you, I don't know, as a doctor, obviously you're still a part of this crew no matter what happens. You need anything, I'm here. Mental health wise or physical health wise. Yeah, just thought I should put that out there. I'm honestly not
thanks.
equipped enough to take a moral stand on this at the moment and try and plan things out, but
I'm not sure it even comes down to morals.
maybe not. In that case, I won't
I've got
lie.
two conflicting orders. I want a captain who wants to do something which I know goes against other standing orders.
I guess the question is, whose orders do you respect more? Or maybe you don't respect either.
I've got nothing but respect for the captain, but her orders are going to cause a problem. As soon as Andorians find out, and it's something I'll have to report. Oh hell, maybe we find the surviving Andorian ship and they spot us with Andorian weapons on board.
Yeah, I
Then
mean, adding more weapons tends not to de-escalate situations, and especially not when they're other people's weapons. Yeah, I mean, I guess the best bet seems like it's just persuading the captain to do something else and hoping all this goes away. But I don't know the captain well enough, even after all this, to know if she'd hold up to that. If we'd actually be able to persuade her.
I don't know. She's pretty stubborn.
Could we provide her with a better option? Like, is there a way we can, I don't know, some tactic that doesn't involve where we can get through this without weapons?
No, I mean, look, I've got my criticisms of Starfleet and the ships they possess, but Starfleet seems to think the Daedalus class is good enough to be out here without giving it extra cannons or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know if it was intended for this role, though,
Well,
these kind of situations.
yeah, but Starfleet again sent us out here, knowing the capabilities of this ship.
I don't
So,
know, there's a lot of things Starfleet doesn't know about
Well,
their ships and the people on them. They're not the most competent of organizations from what I've seen. Like, they're good, they're not bad. Well, you know, I mean, and I imagine the Andorian Guard's not much better, but no offense.
they've they've got their problems. The airing of disputes is a bit freer.
But yeah, none of the captain's permission to talk because I don't want to be I can't say anything the captain wouldn't like kind of stuff.
In theory, that's there, but usually you just speak until the captain says shut up.
Yeah, you see, that does sound better. I'm not a fan of bootlicking.
Yeah,
At least not
I
the-
just
not
have
the
to.
kind where you have
I feel like
to
I'm having
each-
to pent myself up around humans a lot.
Yeah, well, I guess in a way, yeah, you know what? Let's not continue that thread.
No,
No, but I can see what you mean about feeling. I mean, I don't fully get it. I'm not Andorian. I don't know what your people are like. I'm not an
there's
alien in a culture like this, but I've got my differences. I've got
there's a certain emotional expressiveness Andorians, which
yeah, that
humans don't necessarily always possess. You're a diverse
no,
bunch, but
I've never been much one for. Well, I don't know. It can vary.
it can.
Emotional expressiveness is difficult for humans in a lot of ways. Sometimes we do it too much. Sometimes we do it too little. Sometimes both at the same time.
Yeah, and it can be confusing, and I find myself having to shut things off a little bit more. Just a me problem.
Well, I mean, you did a reasonable job of constraining your emotions with the captain. I feel like you didn't. I mean, you sound. I mean, you sounded annoyed when I got here, and you're not
Oh,
actively
I could
talking.
I could have
So-
gone off on one at the captain at that moment. I really, really could. She needs to appreciate. I was holding back.
Oh yeah.
I
No,
was
I
not.
get
I
that.
didn't want to undermine her authority. But I just. If I opened my mouth at that point, I was probably gonna start shouting. So
Yeah, fair. Still, you didn't start shouting, and that's something I guess maybe you're
hey,
more human than you'd care to admit.
uh,
I know, terrifying thought.
you're having a bad effect on me, clearly.
Yeah, we're contagious like that, I'm afraid. You want to just... I mean, I haven't got anything urgent that needs doing. I completed most of my paperwork. Until the captain starts using those weapons, I'm not going to be needed. So, you want to just hang out, or do you want me to give you some space?
Sure, let's hang out.
Cool. You got any games, sports? You do sports?
I do some sports.
Any ones I'd know? Probably not. You seen?
Mostly violent ones.
Okay, that I'm not so good at.
No? What?
No.
Yeah.
You a fan of zero G football? I think there's
Sounds
definitely.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a player myself, but I keep up with some of the teams.
Well, let's watch that.
Well,
then.
I did back on Vega, haven't in a while. Yeah, that'll be good.
I think we can bring the scene to a close. There,
Yes.
Yeah. You start
Brain
rummaging.
desperately trying to make up a name of a sports team that I can cheer for.
Yep. You start rummaging through the files, which I imagine includes, well, I guess the initial bonding might occur over sports options. Although I wouldn't be surprised if at a certain point, just given the sheer scale of what was it? Winneil's dream adventures, some questions start to arise there. But
yes.
we'll let that be set aside for now, as the scene moves back towards the bridge for a moment, where let's see, Patel.
It's the ready room, I do believe.
Well, yes, but you have to go through the bridge to go to the ready room, and the GM is really trying here. So, Patel, you are momentarily, as you were when the guests first came aboard, you were left alone in the. You're left in the command chair. Minor officers have taken positions. Connolly being the face that you are most accustomed to or most familiar with. Everyone else is still doing their bit. Connolly himself is maintaining. He's being as professional about it as he can, but you can also tell he's a little off because he's a bit quieter than he usually is. He usually doesn't hesitate to volunteer an opinion or anything of the sort. I imagine on that ambience alone, that makes the chair just a little less comfortable. And say what you will to set things up, but I'm going to have Sharp come through the turbo lift in a moment. Door opens. Sharp enters the bridge.
She'll just take get back into the proper sort of authoritative captain demeanor and walk in. Patel, if you can have a moment.
Of course, and he nods. How much time has intervened since, we got to the bridge?
With the time that Romanov took aside, and for anything that Sharp is considered, it's maybe
Probably
been.
5 minutes.
I'll be a little more generous and set it closer to 10.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess
let's. I wanted to put that question out there because considering Patel's not happy with the captain's decision and it's very complex, I think Soral shares his concerns. So if Patel would suggest or be amenable to them talking to the captain together.
I mean, like I said in Discord, as a player, I'm fine with it, but I don't know how much it fits the scene.
This was sort of the narrative of the captain or the EXO talking to the captain, and the captain retconned that.
Fair.
But so I asked about the question about time. Am I holding a pad in my hand with some info that might be relevant for me, based on what I told Crichton to do?
I think that Conceivably, Creighton has just had the moments of time to where he is starting to consult the information while he and Saral are down in the lab. He obviously, like, you made it up to the bridge in fairly short order, even with the pause. Let's see. I have been trying to draw on any information about differences in terms of law of the sea, and
Yeah, I was
Like-
trying to do the same. I'm just going to wing it.
yeah, I think
but-
that's. I would say, hew as closely to that as you wish. Flavor it up. I'd also say Star Trek has the. It's definitely got like the horn blower in space element you can draw into it, but the concerns that have been aired are all valid from all parties. So
Yeah. I'm gonna hold a pad if for nothing else. Then Patel needs a fidget spinner to hold in this meeting.
So the two, you leave the chair, Connolly taking your place, and the two of you cross the room to the door that takes you into the captain's ready room.
Would you like a cigar? She says, as she steps over to her desk.
He almost has to suppress like a nervous laugh. He didn't anticipate that to be the first line. Thanks. The gesture is appreciated, Captain, but I don't partake. But feel free.
She'll just grab one from a. The thing has no freaking drawers, but let's say there's a drawer. She installed a drawer, and just pulls it out, lighting it while just looking out into space.
In the process, Patel, you recall it somewhere in the Uniform Code of Justice and other Starfleet protocols, there are a number of there's probably a number of protocols against igniting a combustible in a starship.
Patel's not going to turn into a stickler for code just because he did a Google search on laws of the sea.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's just you notice this, but I would totally see it as not being something you'd bring up in the moment. Not really the point.
But I mean, if there were an inner monologue situation, that might be a thing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I feel like that's probably the page that you're on. Just as that happens. And
Yeah, I look
flip
down.
to the next page immediately.
That's perfect. I look down like nervously at my pad, and I just see onboard fire hazards, and I quickly skim through to the next page.
Yep.
She just takes a slow drag, exhales. Go ahead.
He sighs deeply, which he does quite often. You're used to it by now.
Yeah.
Captain, I don't have to tell you what the role of a first officer is. I think
glad to see that you're starting to pick up on that. On being a first officer, I mean.
Okay, he would have been vaguely insulted if you hadn't followed up on that. But just for the sake of, I mean, as a player, for the sake of the audience, he will say, part of the duties of a first officer is to present the captain with all available options, and when necessary, give them a different perspective on things, so that they can make the best decision that they're able to make. There are many reasons why the course of action that we're going down right now feels wrong. And speaking off the record, Captain, if I may.
She just gives you like a glance, but you know it's an affirmative. Otherwise, she would say totally no.
I think over the past months that we've worked together, I think you also know why it is wrong and why I will say what I'm about to say. Firstly, relieving the ship at the moment of its tactical officer does not seem like the most sound situation to be in when we're in the middle of what is just a few hours ago what was a battlefield. To say nothing of wading into some very heavy diplomatic waters, potentially with circumstances beyond our ship and our crew, in appropriating technology from races that we are sometimes cordial with, sometimes not. in a very, very delicate geopolitical situation. I understand protecting the ship is a priority. Of course, that's our priority too, as the crew of the Aegis. But there does come a time when we have to ask ourselves, is this course of action why we are here? And does the price of adding an extra cannon or two to the ship justify the damage that it would make to our humanity and to our overall situation as a united Earth out here among the stars? As first officer, of course, we will follow your orders, but I couldn't do so without having said this, and I feel I'm not alone in this.
To be quite honest, Kieran, she like taps the cigar into an ashtray. I don't think I'm very much into it myself. But we are amongst giants in the playground at the current moment. The Andorians, the Vulcans, the Kazenti. And I feel we're drawing closer to something even bigger. Especially with everything that's going on right now. Something is trying to weaken the sector, the quadrant.
If I may, as somebody who was in a situation of being amongst the giant bullies in the playground, the key to surviving that scenario is not picking up the bully's cudgel yourself. It's outsmarting and outthinking and sticking to your beliefs, which you know to be stronger than theirs. It's about being the bigger person in the room, not the one that is most well-armed or well-muscled.
You know, I told Kara that I wasn't like those skullcrackers in Alpha Centauri. And here I am making orders similar to such, equally burnt out in some regards. She just gets quiet for a moment. There's an issue regarding Shira and the Andorians, and one her and I both knew was going to come up, and perhaps I drew too quickly in that fight, that argument. She shakes her head. Is there a clock around here or like a calendar?
There's definitely a ship's chronometer, and I would imagine that your own, a part of like the personal computer console that you have in the room, is also like it would have something that would manifest a date and time shipboard.
You wouldn't believe me, but I think we're running out of time, Kieran. And I'm running out of tricks. So I guess to some extent I was a little desperate. But give the ship my countermand, belaying the order I gave previously. I do want the data from the wreckages. We certainly need that to figure out where exactly these signals are coming from and who exactly is looking for Miss Sloan. Perhaps even give us a clue in the greater mysteries that we found ourselves in the middle of. But for the other things, it's not worth risking a mutiny or the breaking of morals of this ship or my own. You're right.
He sighs and just closes his eyes. Mouths something to himself, but you don't. I think you have your back to me, right? Or are you looking?
She's looking to you.
Okay. He vaguely mouths something to himself, but it's not. I think you would pick up that it's not meant for you. It's meant for him.
I think you're doing better, Kieran. Thank you. figure out what you can of the data that Miss Sloan is giving after giving my the counterman to my order, and then I would like you to relay to Lieutenant Shira that she is put back on duty, but I want to see her in the gym in, I don't know, 2 hours.
He nods. Well, he opens his eyes again. They were only closed for a second. And he nods and says, very well, Captain. Thank you. Do we dismiss there, or is there more?
No, she just gestures. Free to go.
Okay. Walk out.
Okay.
She'll just look back on the clock and take a slow drag while glaring at it.
Yes, for time runs short, and you definitely feel its encroach, Sharp. I think that while we could start on the analysis bit there as kind of a postscript to that scene. This almost feels like it is too good of a point to close off. So, whatever.
No, we still got like another 45 minutes. Like,
Okay,
I didn't mean for the sudden drama.
Oh no, drama good, drama
No,
entertaining.
drama's fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is like the
Drama
best, literally the best session.
So, but if we want to finish it off, though, I would like to have a meeting or a gym meeting with Shira.
Well, I think that should be saved till next session. I think that the only thing I would add here to this, if we want to do anything with it, would maybe be to get Saral and Crichton starting to work on their or on the decryptions, or try to start working with the data that they've received. So we can make that, since I continue to not be satisfied with any Vulcan sets that I find, or that is to say Vulcan ship interior sets, certainly not one that communicates the chaos of Saral's interior accommodations, nor
Chaos follows him like an old friend.
Yes. I don't have anything that's good for that, and I don't know. Well, would you be going to your shuttle, Saral, or would it be to the? Would it be going over to the to the all-purpose science lab set that we have on the Aegis? Either is really perfectly fine.
I guess probably the science lab, because I suppose the data will be sent to the Aegis.
Yeah. It can be more easily transferred from there once you have that info together. So we'll start off going down to the science lab set. Let me just look about the sets here and remember where I put the science lab. As the captain meditates on the flow of time and how she feel it is diminishing much more for ill. Down in the science lab, Saral, you and Crichton are starting to parse over data that has been transmitted from the Lily. I think at this point you would also be joined by Kara Sloan, who wanted to be present for this situation, or the initial work. She can't help but acknowledge the Xyrilian device that is still presently sort of lodged in an area. It's kind of been just left on the counter, illuminated but non-functional.
It's probably like there's a couple of panels open, wires hanging out.
Yeah. Well, that's something new. Do you usually pick up interesting salvage out here?
Well, the don't actually know who bought it. I think someone from the crew brought it from a trader in the loosest sense of the word. Caused quite a bit of a stir, actually.
We do not speak of it. We do not speak of the frog.
Yes, of course, Crichton.
We
I'll
do,
tell you later.
we do not speak of the frog. We do not speak of the frog.
The first,
I just
yeah,
lean
the first
over
rule
to
of
Lily.
Frog
I'll tell you later.
Yeah. Sloane just kind of shrugs her shoulders and brings whatever the equivalent of a USB drive is in this era. Well, here is the initial sample message that we had sent out. I had parts of the sequence enough to discern some characters here. The whole message in and of itself, well, that's actually in. I would have to send that over proper data transfer. We have quite a few kiloquads of information on that. We took very detailed scans, and hell, we even tried to run some of the translation, both to discern the star charts and the alphanumeric sequences. Uh, you know, we could probably set that on a shortwave transmission that would be able to effectively get in there, or link into some sort of data port in order to transfer it. But it's a lot of data rather. Don't know why people use the hard A. She says,
Tomato, tomato.
yeah, ignoring what the influence that TNG hath wrought. Anyway,
I mean, as long as it's not someone's name you can actually mispronounce, it's really not a problem.
true. Okay, well,
Yeah, I'm not liking the sound of TNG if they called him Commander Data.
no.
Commander Data, could you please?
Yeah, that's where this stream might be okay with Pulaski, but we are not okay with Pulaski mispronouncing people's names, or at least the android's name. That's the only person she would. Anyway, let's move on ahead here.
Let's give me some juicy data.
Yeah. Saral, as information starts to funnel through, I'm going to ask you to start off with an insight and science roll that will be assisted by the ship's computers and science.
Fantastic. Also, why do you have so much threat?
Oh,
Just noticing.
the Kazinti gifted quite a bit to me from the end of last session, and then we started a new adventure, which meant I gained even more threat.
Shouldn't you discard before you gain new from a new adventure?
That's never how I've played it, Felix, and you know it. How do you think I acquired?
Damn it!
How do you think I acquired the totals from our last campaign? Don't you?
You know what? You know what would be even better than 12 threat? 13 threat. So no, this is just
come on.
this is just the message she sent to Alpha Centauri and the Cochrane Institute, right?
Yep. She has basically included a data packet which includes a sample of information. So there will be some complex characters of some sort, pictograms, and like something outright appearing to like resemble an unusual map-like sequence of a sort.
Fair. So
working from here, I think that this is going to be an insight plus science, and I am going to set the difficulty on. I actually think even with the Aegis helping you out here, this is a difficulty 5 roll.
To achieve what? To figure out what was so interesting about it. Or like what's the like?
Well, I guess perhaps I can amend the difficulty a little bit. What are you trying to discern with the roll? That's actually a better question to start with.
Well, for the message she sent back, I would like to try and figure out what is so if I can figure out what is so interesting about the data package she sent. The reason for that might entirely be what that whole star chart and everything is entirely, which might be a separate role, like to figure out what that is all about. Am I making sense? You know what I mean?
I think I see what you're saying. So, I think that could actually give you just so far as the data packet is concerned. I won't force you to roll to look over that because it is a fairly straightforward message in terms of like there's a letter attached, there's probably a "Hi Mom, I'm coming home" aspect to it. It occurs to you that given the digital equivalent of the letterhead that she is using, this transmission is also intended for somebody that works at the Cochrane Institute, which would suggest the Sloans stayed involved with high-tech development in Alpha Centauri. Um, there is reference to interesting archaeological data and discovery, as well as some testing on the engines. That data is not, rather, the engine data is not present in the transmission. More just a statement of, systems operating within expected parameters and all that. I will say, from what you know of the craft, it's not something terribly impressive by Vulcan standards. Your own shuttle probably outclasses them. But the data packets itself, like there's a request to get time with basically supercomputers at the Institute, and that sort of as a sample primer, there's inclusion of the following like details that include some of these scans from both the archaeological sites at Philebia and Stamaris. In both cases, they include samplings of the like the glyphs that some are tied to text, some are tied to like there are pictograms there that might have something to do with the believed star charts and possibly like even some allusion to subspace issues. So it's a sampling of all of that. It's by no means complete. But that's the general. You're getting basically a slice of everything that comes from that with the message.
Vertical research slice.
Yeah. And I will say that that is just all something that you can get for free as regards to the information. I won't.
Yeah, because I'm assuming whatever triggered the response is not obvious without knowing what the data means in any way, shape, or form.
Indeed.
Unless the only thing I can think of is there anything when I see like pictures of the pictograms and anything that like that goes around like science circles, like rumor wise, or even conspiracy theories, because there's no complete secret. If this is of interest, someone's talking about it. They might not know why they're talking about it. They might be talking it in the wrong context, but it's like there's a Mayan calendar. Does it predict the doomsday? No. There's still a calendar. You know what I mean?
Indeed.
That's the only way I can think of, but I don't have to. I'm also very happy to just take a look at the complete data and crack that or try to.
So I'm half considering the idea of asking you to spend the point of momentum to obtain the information, but the thing is, it would only tell you about a lack of information, which, given the circles in which you traverse Soral, would be unusual. There is, so far as your fields go, and indeed the among any contact you know of or anything of the sort, this is the first of its particular kind. Like, let's not be mistaken. There are plenty of archaeological sites. There are known instances and rumors of species that have existed long before as spacefaring creatures. Vulcans themselves, some of the myths detailed had their own potential for interstellar travel when it came to people that supposedly left during the time of Surak, or like
Yeah,
just on
that's
the
just
verge.
nonsense, as we all know.
Of course.
Scientifically disproven time and time again.
The Vulcan Science Directorate has concluded the possibility of any colony ships departing in this time, let alone being able to survive, to not be possible.
Yeah, the same way time travel doesn't exist. Why is the ominous music playing? Yeah, so it's like nothing in the data I've ever encountered before, which makes me even more curious.
Yes, yes. Certainly, you would know that if somebody were mentioning the ability of, like, Bronze Age or earlier natives being able to chart subspace in a manner, that would have been, like, a pretty major discovery.
You could say that again. Yeah. So then I would like to start looking at the data in some way or form.
All right. Then, is there a particular question that you want to ask with it, or do you want to go with, like, trying to find out even, like, just the baseline interest? Well, I'll tell you what. I'm still going to retain the baseline interesting question as requiring the same insight plus science roll.
Mm-hmm.
It will still be a difficulty of 5 in order to succeed. You may attempt to ask follow-up questions by spending momentum in order to purchase that, though with just the sliver of data that you have here, you're not necessarily going to be able to answer everything. So I just want you to be cognizant of that.
I thought we had all of it.
Well, they have
not yet.
all of the information from the other two. They've only brought you the sample here, and they've offered to connect you with more information.
Oh, I think like looking over the sample data and recognizing literally none of it, so I'll just say this is truly fascinating. Never encountered anything like it. Before I'd even venture a wild guess, I would like to see more of it.
Oh, well, that can be arranged. I've had Dr. Natala working to establish a data link here, so we should be able to get that transmitted. She'll pull out she's got like a wrist-based communicator. Natala, if we're all set, you can initiate the transfer when ready. With acknowledgement, data will start coming through. And boy, is it coming through in the kiloquads here.
The hard drive is full.
The Aegis is just starting to process the information that they're coming through. I think that the first bits that would start showing up are basically mappings of the various archaeological sites that were studied here, and like the database on all the other elements there. The beginnings of a translation matrix are probably also making their way through. But yeah, basically now you're in a position to try and make a roll on this.
That's what I was aiming for.
Yep.
So guys, to the team, how hard do you want me to go with this?
Would it require a freaking threat because we already have 12?
I mean, look, he's gonna do what he's gonna do. It's like he's gonna get that threat one way or another. It's like it's whatever. For me at least. I would do, if you want to go me like full hard, I would buy one die with threat, 2 momentum for a 4th die, and I could spend the determination. And if that doesn't give me 5 successes, I don't
I
know.
think you should go for it.
Do
Go
it.
for it.
I also whispered one question to you, Saral.
Okay, let's go a bit slightly differently. I kind of look at all like the data stream, and everything, and just go, you know what, Lily? I think we need to change of locations. I think I have just what we need to process this.
Well, it's
then I
Kara,
start
actually. Lily
walking
was
out of-
grandmother.
Oh,
But-
what's her name again?
My
Kara.
name was Kara. Lily was
Oh,
my
sorry,
grandmother.
Kara.
All
It's
good.
Lily has been brained into my brain since we harpooned your ship. I'm sorry.
That's quite all
Um,
right. I like him,
anyway,
she
Kara.
says to Crichton.
Yes, come along, Crichton, and he starts like striding out of the lab
Oh dear. And
and head to the shuttle / runabout, which are vastly bigger than I thought they would be. They're not big, but like bigger than I thought.
yeah,
Um,
and that's just what it's considered tonnage-wise. A runabout, what would be considered a runabout for this era, is smaller than I think a runabout in like TNG era.
don't kill my dreams, man. Don't kill my dreams.
For those who are at all curious, why I and Felix we are alluding to it that way. We had very recently gone through further discussion about Mr. Sorrell's ship, and I found that it was most appropriate to declare that it met the tonnage of what Utopia Planitia, or the Utopia Planitia book by Modiphius, represents as a runabout. The book describes, among other things, from a mostly Starfleet perspective, how to build ships with numerous talents, departments, how to stat it up properly, from your mainline starship to large hulking starbases down to the smallest of shuttles. And it does also provide a lot of customization options that can be oriented towards ships of other powers. So in this era, Vulcan, Andorian, Tellarite, even Klingons for the era. It is immensely helpful and it's a lot of fun. I've been barely scraping the surface with all of the resources it provides. So if you're of means, you should definitely check it out. It's on the Modiphius website. Make sure that you follow their official links for it. I hear there's been at least one scam going around. Link should be in the description of the video. Yes, I
Hashtag not sponsored.
At this point, you need an offer code or something.
if only.
You really need to. So we go into the shuttle, which is kind of like open in one of the hangar bays, and I also expect there's like big cables leading into it, like connecting it to power and data and everything. While it's more or less stationary here for months.
Yeah, you've had occasion to set it up, I'm sure, with the captain's blessing or ignorance.
No, there's like nothing extraordinary about it. It's literally just like to kind of ensure like it stays. It doesn't it's not mothballed. That's what I'm trying to say.
Fair enough.
So going inside, it's a mess as always. There's like a lot of spaces where something should be but isn't because it has been confiscated by lesser minds. And he goes straight to the back end of the shuttle where it's like a small seating area, like in a camper or something. And the table, as one of the plates has been like opened up, and clearly a device has been wired in which was not standard equipment. And he starts like pressing buttons. Look, I've spent considerable amount of time working on a creative data processing unit, and I think this would be a perfect opportunity to give this a whirl.
Oh, well, I can't think of any objection here. And
Fantastic.
yep, the one Starfleet person sanctions it as best he can because he doesn't understand the implications. So
I mean, it's all in my ship, so it's like, if anything goes wrong, it's my ship.
yep,
So,
yep.
I mean, he's standing close, but as there's risks and everything. I don't know how. I suppose that would substitute the ship as a support.
It
or as an assist.
It would augment the ship, I think, in this case.
Or like, and then the shuttle is. I don't know. You need to know how you want to run this. And then I go with not dangerous science. What's it called again? Bold science. Bold science. Give you one threat for the literature 13.
Yep, I'm
for
just
one die.
working with what I'd taken a moment ago from that.
I think the 2 momentum have also been spent.
Yes.
I have focuses computers, linguistics, and investigation. I think yes. Or
Uh, sorry, that was investigation and well, yeah,
computers, linguistics, and investigation are my focuses that I think would apply here.
all of those would apply.
Fantastic. Can I get like double advantage or something?
If only.
And then I want to spend my determination and for an auto crit with the value inquiring minds need to know.
I love it. You get the auto crit.
Uh... I'm gonna reroll those 2 zeros. Or should I go full? Or should I go broke?
Oh, well, I mean, bold would allow you to re-roll both of
Is it
them.
1?
I think that they've revised it to where bold and cautious allow you to re-roll the pool.
You are the expert. I'm gonna roll
If it
those
is
2
swayed,
zeros.
yeah. Tell you what, before you do that, let's see how everything else scores here.
Fair.
So with the I'll have this rationalized here in a moment for you, but this will be one of the rolls. Oh, those are not correct. That's why I didn't have anything selected. Still no good. Picking up data.
Sadness.
Yeah.
Although
Since I've momentarily gone with a slight
that's a 15. That's not a 20.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Because of how I am treating this this rather creative device here, there is a reroll that's allowed. And yes, also to clarify, the shuttle sheet just needs a bit of tweaking. We had an adjustment that was made with the character sheets a little while ago, so that was although that 0 reads as a complication, it is in fact a 15 on the die. That being said, I'm going to allow one reroll on that. Oh, so that will come into play, and I'll whisper what I did here for you, Felix.
Yeah, and I'm gonna reroll my 2 zeros, and
Yep.
maybe we get some. No, apparently not allowed.
Evidently.
But we're just getting the 5, so success.
Yep.
Even though Zral is not happy for some reason.
Yep. Okay, so let's see. Apologies here. All right. There. So you can review that at a later time, or like the exact implications of that, and we can make revisions as needed. But for this case, I did. That's what I did. So, Saral, the data begins to process, and between there is a bit of processing that the Aegis is helping you with here, not enough to be treated for an assist on the roll. There is the work that the Lily had already done and that you were trying to do here. I think this is where some serious time starts elapsing, because even with the full processing power that you have from all of these and your diligent work, this is taking you some time to even start to tease out. Indeed, Crichton is also looking over, and he seems just positively bamboozled by the nature of the characters and pictographs, making the occasional comment of I'm not sure I get I entirely get this, sir, but this is the most complex system here. He's just he'll occasionally throw out that unhelpful aside insofar as he is trying to exclude some possibilities. But this is mostly you trying to parse it together, and I
I
think
guess go ahead.
what first hits you with this is that as you start to run through the translations, you begin to pick up signs of a pattern. The mapping that was from the two sites does appear to have essentially star charts and like not just the star charts but subspace charts of some sort. And some of the characters which correspond to them some of them indicate possibly some sort of designation of sites, but others they come across more as coordinates, formulas, things that describe complex relationships as best as you can understand it. And as the data begins to interact between the two, you notice an unusual effect. For one thing, you notice between that, you notice that the stellar positions appear to be shifting a bit, but there is a more pronounced fluctuation with the subspace elements. You begin to get you start getting messages popping up on your computer from this. As this analysis goes.
Yes.
So you notice, for one thing, that there is that adaptation taking place. You notice further that as that begins to shape itself,
Is that something that the data provided by by Kara does, or what the processing does to it?
That's what the processing of the information is doing.
Fantastic.
Yeah. The more that you have the computers thinking about it, the more there is realization of a sort, or like you are able to start drawing some sort of conclusion. And while the stellar patterns are taking a particular shape, the most interesting bit is definitely what the subspace patterns are doing. And in particular, what the one feed is telling you.
I think also the most interesting part, which might no one even really realize, is that I imagine Kara and Crichton are focused on what the data is giving them, while Soral is mainly focused on how the data is processed.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Yes.
what the result is he's also like looking at what's like secondary.
Yep. As you open up the screen, you see effectively the creation of new data pathways to process the information in real time. This immense amount of information is proving positively stimulating, it seems.
This is fantastic. This is more than I could have hoped.
Oh, you think that you've identified something on these archaeological patterns? Because I must say, sir, I can't have a clue, or I don't have a clue. I wasn't rolling, so I can't.
Oh, you're allowed some insights, Crichton, even without rolling.
Oh, fair enough.
That's called plot convenience.
Oh, quite right, sir.
Yes. I need my new shot for metaspeak. It's cutting up again.
Yeah. Sloan looks between the two of you. This isn't contagious, is it?
No, it's weirdly only in Earth ships that it's really manifesting. It's a weird thing. We don't talk about it too much.
Don't talk about the frog.
There's no frog. Anyways, the date this is a unimaginable amount of data. This will take time to process. However, I can already tell that we are getting somewhere. Your theory was correct in terms of Kara. Is that the star data and the data for the subspace is indeed needs to be corrected for the time shift of 30,000 years. It's currently doing that. But I'm estimating, and correct me if I'm wrong, like at least a couple of hours before we get any tangible results.
I think that would be
Um,
fair.
But there is certainly a pattern that is emerging.
Oh,
I didn't even write that neural pathway. It's on all on its own. It's fantastic.
I'm sorry. That do you think you've actually teased out some sort of pattern from all of this?
Is that something I already have, or that's like the end result of it?
That's kind of that's what you have as well, it is conjecture, not not from you in this particular case, but
Mm-hmm.
it is something that is steadily being confirmed.
Okay, so what he does is like he turns around to like one of the big screens on the wall and pulls up the data, like a star map. On the screen is like, so this is the star maps as we have them currently, and currently the program is adjusting them for stellar shift for roughly 30,000 years, and it appears these are the subspace lines. It appears they are converging, and like all the lines are very like diffuse and cloudy because it's like all probabilities where the shift will lead them to, but you kind of start to see um, that they start to bundling up in one location.
Well, or at least in some sort of nebulous. Or I should correct to say that the lanes do seem to create some sort of nebulous sort of convergence in a general direction, as if Stamaris and Pholebia are treated as two sites here, and uh, as the further the data processes, the more that something is beginning to come together. And what that is, I think we are going to have to save for next week. So this is the more logical point to cut things off. Yeah, I think that in the archive, we are going to go ahead and leave you off here. I hope you enjoyed this part for all its drama and the beginnings of getting us on our way. If you ever want to join us live, then stop in at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Saturday, and we hope you can catch us live. Otherwise, we hope you keep enjoying the archives, and we will see you around. So long.